Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine. One of my top 10 favorite albums ever. It's one of the few albums I listen to on its birthday every year. October 19th, 1989. And every year I listen to it, I think the same thing. Wow, it hits me just as hard every time. Anyway, I listened to this album when I was 12, and I fell in love with it on first listen. You know, there's some Nine Inch Nails albums that it takes a few listens to get into, but not this one, because this one's a little more accessible than his other albums. Now, we start with the song Head Like a Hole. Where do I begin? You got a whole bunch of different things going on in the same song. You have the typical splicing that occurs in industrial music, but you also have guitars, a catchy chorus, interesting synth breaks, anti-government messages, and the interesting part is, it has industrial elements, but it's slightly more accessible. Whether you think this is a good or bad thing, whatever, but I find it's part of what makes the album addicting. In fact, it's not even 100% industrial, it's more rock with an industrial edge. Well, more like EBM and synth pop, but whatever. Terrible Lie. It's best listened to at night. It may seem at first like there isn't a whole lot going on, but it's just like Godflesh's Street Cleaner. It's amazing music that you have to kind of let grow on you. The more I listen to it, the more I notice the echoed vocals and the reverberated drums on both sides of the speaker. Live, the song is even harder. The guitars are louder, and there are more synth sections. It sounds a little similar on the 2010 remaster of the album, but it's a shame that it's been brick-walled to death. Dig It, oh wait a minute, I mean Down In It, is pretty cool if you're referring to the album version that doesn't overstay its welcome and repeat itself 1,000 times. The album version is only 3 minutes and 47 seconds long. Of course, remixes might even be 6, 7 minutes. Who wants to listen to that? Now, the album version is pretty trippy. Now, I wouldn't notice until way later, until I got into Skinny Puppy, that it was pretty much a copy-paste formula of Skinny Puppy's song Dig It. Now, they do sound relatively similar, with the drum beat and the guitars coming in every few notes. However, I hear more of Dig It on Terrible Lie than I do with Down In It. Again, it's because of the drum beat. Now, it's a great drug song, as are many of the songs from the album, but you'll find yourself screaming along with him, I used to be somebody. Plus, the bass at the beginning of the song. Whoa! I never really could figure out what the that was. But the rain segment at the end of the song usually distracts me. Cocaine is a hell of a drug, kids. Sanctified uses the famous Seinfeld bass line throughout. Now, in recent years, when playing live, the bass line is a bit different, but I find either version to be enjoyable. After all, bass is supposed to serve as a foundation to a song, and that's all this does. All kinds of other things go around the bass line. Anyway, the lyrics are pretty sexy. And it's totally felt when the synths and guitars play around Trent's voice. Plus, the lead guitar during the chorus is absolutely badass. I mean, you have brilliant lyrics such as, I dream of lips I never should have kissed. Well, she knows exactly what I can't resist. I think Nine Inch Nails always does a pretty good job of putting into words what the listeners sometimes have a hard time doing. But Nine Inch Nails by nature is just an introspective band, and that obviously helps their appeal. I mean, you'll hear a lot of people talk about how some of their albums may have changed someone's life, or influenced them in some way. For me, it's the honesty. I mean, before I got into them, I just wasn't used to hearing music as honest and dark as this. I mean, pain in popular music is usually a selling point, but to have it legitimately and channel it through your music, that takes courage. Then you have the song Something I Can Never Have. Remember Natural Born Killers? Anyway, the piano riff is playing slightly off the whole song, as if it's giving off a catatonic vibe. It's like the character is so defeated that he can't even compose himself correctly. It's the least busy song on the album, and it's the most piano-driven. But it'll still rip your heart out if you're in the mood for it. Anyway, the song is about a failed relationship. Like, he betrayed the other person somehow. And when he asked for the other person's forgiveness, she said that she was going to forgive him, but she didn't actually do it. And this is just tearing them apart. Sin is another example of a song that hits harder live, and I personally like the music video. It's pretty dark and fun to listen to, but it's another night song. Just walk downtown after hours, and maybe you'll find some ravers and rivet heads along the way. Basically, the whole song builds up to the guitar solo near the end. That's What I Get. Yet another relationship song. It's a breakup song. Tell you what I love about this song and the album in general is how heavy the synths can get. like at the bridge of this song. You know, in more recent years, I kind of wonder what Trent thinks about the last 3 songs on this album. I mean, in later years you have dark songs such as Ripe with Decay and No You Don't, which are completely different animals from this. But I guess that's the difference between synthpop and EBM, and whatever you want to classify the later albums as. The only time. I often wonder if Trent was insanely drunk while writing the lyrics to this song. For their intents and purposes, they do fit the song pretty well. And then of course, live, they'll call the last minute of Closer the only time, but I just don't really see the similarity. Why not just stick to calling it Closer? Anyway, with this song, you also have the recurring synth from Down In It. I think with Nine Inch Nails, there's always a recurring element that shows up in later songs. For instance, Only has a line from Down In It, and Into the Void has the same riff as La Mer. Ring Finger is a nice album closer. It's another one that takes a couple listens to get into, tends to get deeper and bigger as it goes along. Think, at the beginning there's just the simple bass and drum beat, and then the second verse has a full band sound. And then the last minute has a lot of samples going over each other. In fact, my favorite part of the song is after Had a Dad by Jane's Addiction makes a cameo and then the synth comes in. Pretty Hate Machine started as an underground hit, and Nine Inch Nails would get even bigger when Broken was released. Of course you're going to have some purists who are going to say that Trent tried to take EBM and industrial and make it more mainstream and accessible, but I kind of disagree because while Nine Inch Nails does have a lot of industrial elements in them, Trent never really claimed to be 100% industrial. I mean, he was influenced by a lot of industrial bands. I mean, he opened for Skinny Puppy in 1988. What else do you want? Anyway, it's a bit more polished, a bit more refined, and it has more of a rock edge to it. Now, for some Nine Inch Nails fans, this album's a little too techno-sounding for them, and that's understandable. Everybody has a different favorite album by them. Mine is still The Downward Spiral, but hey. Also, this album is a little more keyboard-driven than the rest of their albums. Now, fortunately, the songs on the album are a lot different than the songs that were on the demos. The demo songs were a lot happier, and I hate them. They're terrible. But fortunately, Trent made all these songs a lot darker and more layered and enjoyable for the album, which I really like. I think Trent having the album sound the way it does with the production and with the instruments used, he helped make it a little darker. Trent totally hit the mark here for what he was trying to get.